Hello there, and welcome to Dreamy Minds. Outside, the world has drawn a soft white breath. The streets are slower, the air is colder, and somewhere behind a window, there is you, wrapped in the small glow of lamplight, listening for a reason to finally rest. Winter has a way of making everything whisper. Snow pulls a blanket over sound, lights turn warm and golden, and even time itself seems to walk instead of run. And yet, inside your mind, there may still be a quiet storm. Thoughts fluttering like restless birds, worries circling, memories replaying themselves in the dark. Tonight, we will walk gently into the science hidden in this season, not as a lesson, but as a lullaby. We'll wander through the cold air, the long nights, the hush of snow, and the soft glow of windows, and see how each of these winter moments touches the brain, slowing it, softening it, and inviting it to let go. Somewhere deep in the mind, there is a clock that listens to light. There are nerves that calm in the quiet. There is a body that sleeps more easily when the air is cool and still. Winter, in its quiet wisdom, speaks to all of these hidden systems. It leans close to your nervous system and whispers, "It's all right to slow down now. You were never meant to be summer all year long." As you listen, you don't have to remember any of this. You don't have to stay awake or try to understand every detail. You can simply let these gentle facts drift over you like snowflakes, each one small and soft, settling on the surface of your thoughts. If you feel tired, that's normal. If you feel overwhelmed, that's normal too. You're allowed to rest here, in this quiet season inside and out. Let the science become soft music in the background of your awareness, and let your body do what it has always known how to do. On long winter nights, slow down, warm up, and drift into sleep. Outside, the day has already folded itself away. The sky has slipped into that particular shade of winter blue. The color that is almost night, but not quite. Like the last page of a book held open before sleep. Streetlights bloom earlier now, one by one. Small suns on slender poles. Windows glow in apartment buildings and houses, each one a tiny world of its own. Holding people who, like you, are feeling the weight of evening arrive, long before the clock says it should. Maybe you are near a window. Maybe you can sense, even without seeing it, the darkness pressed softly against the glass. You might feel a little more tired than usual, a little heavier, as if someone has draped a warm, invisible blanket over your thoughts, somewhere deep inside your brain. Far beneath your thoughts and feelings and plans, a very small collection of cells has been listening all day to the changing light. It is listening still. Scientists call this little cluster your master clock. A tiny region nestled near the center of your brain, just above where the nerves from your eyes cross, like a lighthouse at the meeting point of sight and life. Its technical name is long and whispery, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. But you don't need to remember that. You can just imagine it as your inner moon, always paying attention to the sky, even when you have forgotten to. From the moment morning light first touched your eyes, this inner moon began quietly counting, not with numbers, but with pulses of tiny electrical whispers, with chemicals rising and falling like the tide. It asked, how bright is the world? How blue is this light? Does this feel like morning or noon or the soft descent of evening? When light enters your eyes, it doesn't only create the images you see. A small portion of that light takes a different path, slipping along a quiet side road of nerves that does not care about shapes or colors or faces. It carries only one message, day or night. This message travels in a straight, gentle line, to that inner moon, to your master clock. Every morning, the first real light you meet is like a hand reaching into the brain, setting the time on that hidden clock, turning the inner gears so they line up with the outer world. And in summer, when mornings are bright and long, this inner clock learns to expect a wide river of daylight stretching across many hours. But winter is different. In winter, the light grows gentle. The days arrive later, wearing a softer, slanting glow. The sun never climbs so high, and it steps away earlier, as if bowing out of the sky, before you feel quite ready for it to go. Your inner clock feels this. It notices the shorter arc of daylight, the longer sweep of darkness. It senses that the daily story of light and shadow has changed its rhythm. You might not consciously think, the photoperiod is shorter now. But your cells know. Your chemistry knows. Your sleep knows. Somewhere beyond your awareness, your brain begins to adjust, nudging the timing of hormones, whispering to organs and tissues, slowing certain processes, encouraging others, all in response to the simple ancient fact that there is more night than day. As evening falls on a winter day, the sky does not blaze as long with orange and gold. Instead, it quickly cools into twilight. And with this cooling of light, something tender begins to happen inside you. A hormone called melatonin starts to rise. Melatonin is often called the hormone of darkness, but that makes it sound harsher than it is. It is more like an internal dusk, a soft tide that rises when the world grows dim. Tiny structures in your brain, particularly a small pinecone-shaped gland, tucked near the center of your skull, begin to release melatonin into your bloodstream when your inner clock whispers, "It is night now." You can imagine melatonin as a fine mist, spreading slowly through the rivers of your blood, reaching every part of you, carrying a single soothing message. It is time to soften. It does not knock you out. It does not force you to sleep. Instead, it quiets certain alerting systems, turns down a few of the mind's brighter lamps, and prepares the soil of your awareness for the seeds of sleep to take root. In summertime, long evenings full of glaring light hold this tide at bay for longer. The nights are short, the twilight stretched thin. Melatonin waits, hovering at the edges of your system, until the world finally darkens. But in winter, darkness arrives earlier, sinking into your rooms, filling corners and hallways with deep, gentle shadow. And as it does, melatonin begins to rise sooner, like a moon that lifts itself quietly over a snowy field. This is one of the reasons you may feel a different kind of tired in winter, a heavier, quieter fatigue that settles in your bones before the evening has even truly begun. It's normal if, on these long winter nights, you find yourself yawning earlier, craving blankets, longing to close your eyes. Even when your schedule insists you should still be wide awake, your biology is listening to the sky. While you check the time on your phone, scrolling through numbers agreed upon by people and devices, another timepiece, older and quieter, is ticking to the rhythm of light and dark. This internal chronicle, written by your inner moon, is telling the rest of your body, this night is long. You can rest more deeply. You might notice how on winter evenings, lamps feel kinder than overhead lights. The lower, warmer glow of a bedside lamp, a candle, a string of soft bulbs, these don't jolt the eyes awake in the same way as cold, bright, blue, heavy light. There is science behind this comfort. Light in the blue part of the spectrum, the kind that mimics a clear, bright midday sky, is especially powerful. at telling your inner clock, stay awake. It is day. Screens, LED panels, bright white bulbs, they all carry a strong current of this blue-toned light. During the day, this is helpful. It keeps you alert, aligns your inner clock with the actual sun above you. But at night, especially in winter, this sharp light can confuse the system. It pours summer into a winter evening. It tells the inner moon that noon is still here. And yet, winter offers its own remedy. The sky itself becomes less intensely blue for fewer hours. Your time outdoors in that bright midday light may be shorter, because the day itself is shorter, and the air is cold. By the time you are home, you are more likely to sit in gentler light, turning on smaller lamps, lighting candles, wrapping yourself in the warm yellows and golds that signal to your brain, day is done. Somewhere deep in the hypothalamus, that little master clock adjusts, shifting its pattern of pulses, encouraging melatonin to drift in earlier, whispering to your body temperature to fall just a bit, inviting your whole system into a slower winter rhythm. It's normal if your mind fights this at first. There are emails to send, messages to answer, tasks still whispering on the edges of your awareness. You might feel a subtle tug of war, one part of you urging movement, another part yearning to sink into the gravity of night. But that heaviness you feel, that early sleepiness, is not laziness, it is not weakness, it is your nervous system responding, precisely as it was designed to respond. Under a sky that darkens quickly, for countless generations, before electric lights, before bright screens, people rose with the sun and slept more in winter. The long dark hours were a season of deeper rest, quieter evenings, stories by firelight, and earlier dreams. Your cells still remember this, even if your calendar does not. Of course, not every aspect of winter's light feels comforting. For some, the shorter days bring not only sleepiness, but a kind of dimming in the heart, a soft grayness in mood that can feel heavy or sad. The same systems that track daylight and shape your sleep also speak to the regions of the brain that govern emotion. When there is less bright morning light, the fine balance of chemicals such as serotonin can shift. Energy lowers. Motivation thins. The world feels at times as if it has been slightly desaturated. If you have ever felt more tender in winter, more easily tired, more prone to wanting to curl inward, know that it is common. Somewhere deep in the mind, the pattern of light is being translated into an inner weather report. Sometimes that report says, "Clouds today, stay gentle with yourself." This too is part of your biology listening to the sky. A kind of seasonal melancholy can appear when the inner clock and the outer world struggle to stay aligned. Less morning light can make it harder for your brain to feel certain about when the day truly begins. The timing of melatonin and alertness hormones may drift slightly out of sync with the demands of work or obligations. But there is a quiet kindness in understanding that this is not a personal failing. It is a conversation between your cells and the season. When you step outside on a winter morning, even if the light seems pale, even if the sun hides behind clouds, that sky still carries the message of day. It still reaches your eyes, travels along that secret side road, and taps gently on your inner clock, saying, Here I am. This is morning." Even a short visit to that cool outdoor light can anchor your inner timekeeper, reminding it of the difference between day and night. And in the evening, letting your surroundings grow softer, lights dimmer, screens a little farther away, allows melatonin to rise in its own time, without confusion. But tonight, you don't need to manage any of that. You don't need to optimize your light or perfect your routine. You are already here, in this moment, with the darkness outside and the gentle glow around you. Your inner clock has been working all day, without your help, listening, adjusting, synchronizing you with the turning earth. Right now, as you lie here, there is a slow choreography unfolding beneath your awareness. Melatonin continues to drift like a deepening tide, washing through tissues and cells. Your core body temperature is likely a little lower than it was this afternoon, still stepping downward. Encouraging drowsiness, signals from your inner moon reach regions of the brain that quiet the loudest chatter. Turn down the volume on the systems that scan for danger, like stars waiting quietly behind winter clouds. Your brain's capacity for sleep, for dreaming, for restoration is already here, even if you cannot see it yet. You may feel still quite awake. Thoughts might still wander, worries might still circle. That's all right. The process of night is larger than any single moment of calm or anxiety. Imagine, just for a moment, that within your skull hangs a tiny silver moon. With each passing evening, it waxes and wanes with the rhythm of your days. When the world is bright and busy, this moon hangs higher, its cool gleam signaling alertness. But as darkness grows, as the hours stretch like ink across the sky, this moon lowers itself, casting a softer glow, calling the tides of sleep inland. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to push yourself into stillness. Nature is doing this for you. The angle of the sun, the length of the night, the chemistry of your blood, all of it is conspiring to slow you down. You're allowed to listen. If you notice your breathing now, you might feel it too, following its own quiet rhythm. No one taught your lungs the length of an inhale, the softness of an exhale. They learned it from life itself, from the pull of oxygen and carbon dioxide, from the delicate balances that keep you here. Your inner clock rests its hand on your breath as well, guiding it to become slower at night, smoother, like a river that has left the rapids and entered a wider, calmer stretch. Thoughts might rise like small waves, but the longer you lie here, the more distance there is between each crest, more silence between each word, more darkness between each flicker of light. Tomorrow, the same inner clock will feel the morning again, read the sky, and reset a little more. But that is for another time. Tonight belongs to the gentle onset of sleep, to this in-between place, where you are held by a season that seems at last to agree with your need to rest. In winter, even the trees look as though they are sleeping. Bare branches reach into the dusk, motionless, yet overflowing with hidden life. They do not bloom now, but they are not gone. They are simply obeying their own deep clocks, following the script of shorter days and longer nights. You too are allowed that obedience to your inner season. If your eyelids feel heavier, that is your melatonin tide. If your limbs feel warm and pleasantly dense, that is your body letting go of some of its daytime tension. If your thoughts begin to blur at the edges, that is your brain closing a few of its windows, one by one, leaving only the softest lights on. You are being guided, gently, steadily, by systems you never needed to learn about, for them to hold you. Your inner moon, your master clock, has watched the winter sky today. It has seen the early sunset, the drawn-out darkness. It has understood the message that even you may struggle to accept. Now is a good time to rest. You are not meant to burn with the same brightness at every hour. in every season. You are a creature of cycles, of light and dark, effort and surrender. So as the light grows gentle outside, let it grow gentle within you as well. Let your awareness dim, not abruptly, but slowly, like the last colors leaving the horizon. You don't need to hold on to this story. You don't need to remember the names of glands or clocks or hormones. You can let all of that drift to the back of your mind, like snow settling on quiet ground, somewhere deep in the mind, beyond words, beyond memory. The message has already arrived. It is night. It is safe enough. You can drift. You can loosen your grip. You can let the darkness of winter wrap around you like a soft, endless blanket, and follow the gentle pull of your inner moon into sleep. Outside your window, the world has turned its volume down. If there is snow on the ground tonight, you might notice it first with your ears rather than your eyes. The usual edges of sound are rounded. Footsteps don't click, they sigh. Cars pass like soft breaths instead of growls. Even voices seem to float, brief and close, instead of carrying sharply down the street. And if there is no snow where you are, you might still feel a similar quietness in the winter air, the way cold seems to weigh sound down, pressing it closer to the earth, leaving more space above you for silence. You are here, in your own small shelter, a room, a bed, a pool of warmth and light. Around you, objects rest where they are: a chair, a table, a door slightly ajar, all of it held within the thin skin of your walls, like a breath held gently in the lungs. Listen, just for a moment, not with effort, but with a kind of soft curiosity. What can you hear? Maybe the low hum of a heater, the quiet tick of pipes, the distant rush of traffic, muted and far away. Maybe just your own breathing, the whisper of fabric when you turn your head, the faint thud of your own heartbeat, echoing softly in your ears. Somewhere inside your skull, a part of you has been listening like this all day, even when you were too busy to notice. A watchful system, always on duty, a guard at the gate of sound. From the moment you woke up, your ears have been open, not like doors you can close at will, but like windows that never fully shut. Sound waves, tiny ripples of pressure in the air, have been brushing against your eardrums, setting them into motion, over and over and over again. Each small movement of that delicate membrane was turned into an electrical whisper, sent inward, along fine threads of nerve, into the depths of your brain. There, hidden in the folds of grey tissue, lies your auditory world. Tiny cells lined up like quiet musicians, each tuned to different pitches, each responding to specific vibrations. They've spent the whole day decoding. Voices, engines, doors, notifications, music, chatter, urgent sounds, casual sounds, a constant river of information. But your brain has not only been hearing, it has been watching, through your ears. Because somewhere behind these systems of listening, there is another network, one that cares less about melody and more about meaning. Is this sound safe? Is it familiar? Is it something to ignore, or something to brace against? Even when you are not aware of it, this deeper layer of your nervous system is always scanning for surprise. It's listening for the unusual, the sharp, the sudden, the out of place. A door slamming, glass breaking, a shout, a siren's wail. This watchful network is part of what kept your ancestors alive long before alarms and locks and security systems. In forests, in open plains, in quiet villages, ears warned of approaching footsteps, cracking branches, distant thunder. Your brain still lives with that ancient task, always a little bit on guard, always leaning forward, just in case. This constant listening keeps you safe, but it also keeps you slightly tense. Even if you don't feel anxious, part of your nervous system is ready to flinch, ready to wake up suddenly. If a noise feels wrong, you may have noticed this. On nights when there is more noise than usual, a party outside, loud neighbors, sirens, a dripping faucet, a phone vibrating again and again. Even when you think you are asleep, your brain remains half turned toward the sound. You dream more lightly, you startle more easily, you wake at small things, and take longer to settle back down. Now imagine the opposite. Imagine the world outside as a wide white field, covered in fresh snow. The air is still, the sky is low and pale. Every surface is softer than it was yesterday. Sound is still there, but it travels differently now. Under your feet, where you once would have heard gravel crunching or leaves rustling, you would now hear only the gentle compressing of snow, a quiet, plush sound, as if the ground itself is exhaling with each step. Cars drive by, but their tires roll over snow instead of hard asphalt. Their noise tucked in by the cold, muted, rounded, like someone speaking through a pillow. Snow, in its physical nature, is a kind of quiet engineer. Each flake is a tiny, intricate crystal, full of edges and pockets, air trapped between ice. When sound waves reach this soft, irregular surface, they don't bounce back sharply, the way they do off concrete or metal. They sink in. The snow takes those vibrations and scatters them, breaking them into smaller and smaller movements, absorbing some of their energy, transforming what might have been loud into something barely there at all. In a way, snow is a listener too, one that does not answer back. It hears the world's noise and drinks it in quietly. The result, to your ears, is a kind of absence, a missing layer of sound you didn't know was always there until it was suddenly softer. This reduction in noise is not just an aesthetic gift. It speaks directly to that watchful part of your nervous system. When there are fewer sounds, especially fewer unexpected sharp sounds, your brain has less to monitor. The guard at the gate can lower its shoulders a bit, lean back against the wall, and breathe. In a noisy environment, your auditory system is like a person at a crowded party, trying to pick out important voices, watching for any sign of trouble, feeling the effort of constant decision. Ignore this. Pay attention to that. Half listen to something else. In winter quiet, especially on a snow-muffled night, the world is more like an almost empty room. A handful of soft sounds, all predictable, all gentle. Your brain's job becomes easier. It can decide. With this little noise, there is probably little threat. For now, it is safe. That tiny phrase, "for now it is safe," is one of the most powerful messages your body can receive. When your nervous system begins to believe it, your muscles release their grip, your heartbeat slows, your breathing deepens, digestion hums along more peacefully, your thoughts have more room to drift and soften instead of staying narrowed and tense. Silence, or something close to it, becomes not just an absence of sound, but a presence of safety. And yet, pure silence, total, complete, untouched by any noise, is rare and can even feel unsettling. If you have ever been in a recording studio, or a soundproof room, or a very remote place far from machines and roads, you may have noticed how strange it feels. When the usual hum of life disappears, the brain, so used to a constant backdrop of sound, suddenly turns its attention inward. You hear your own heartbeat more clearly, the rush of blood in your ears, the creak of your own joints, the small, wet clicks of swallowing. For some, this can feel almost too exposed, too intimate. Your mind might begin searching for noise, wondering, what is missing, questioning if the silence is normal or if something is wrong. This is why the most soothing winter soundscapes are rarely truly silent. They are, instead, softly populated by gentle, steady noises, subtle enough not to demand attention, constant enough to be reassuring. The low, continuous whoosh of a heater, pushing warm air through vents, the faint gurgle of radiators, water and metal talking quietly in the pipes, the occasional soft click and sigh of a house adjusting to temperature changes, its wood and brick expanding and settling, like a chest rising and falling in sleep. Even the wind, when it is not wild, becomes part of this winter orchestra. A slow, breathy murmur around the corners of buildings, a whistle here and there, a gentle tap of branches against glass. These sounds share a few qualities that your brain finds deeply soothing. They are predictable. They repeat in steady patterns. They have no sudden spikes, no violent crescendos. Your auditory system, always looking for patterns, quickly learns the rhythm of these noises. Once it recognizes that they are safe and unchanging, it can file them under background and move them to the edge of awareness. This process, the brain's ability to gradually stop responding to a repeated, harmless sound, is called habituation. You experience it every day. When you stop hearing the refrigerator hum, or the fan spinning, or traffic outside a familiar window. Many people actually seek out this effect. To help them sleep, they use white noise, or soft rain sounds, or recordings of distant ocean waves, steady, repetitive soundscapes that give the brain something gentle to lean on. In a way, winter often creates its own version of this, a natural white noise machine built from heaters, radiators, wind, and the faint, padded echoes of life going on indoors. You might find that you sleep better with this kind of sound than in absolute stillness. Your ancient nervous system was forged in environments that were rarely truly silent. There was always wind, or insects, or water, or the breathing of other bodies nearby. Total silence can feel like emptiness. Soft sound feels like company. So if, as you lie here, you notice the murmur of heating vents, the whir of a fan, the soft shush of a car passing in the distance, you can think of these as a kind of modern winter lullaby. Each noise says, I am here. I am familiar. I am safe. Over and over, until your brain no longer bothers to listen. Meanwhile, outside, if there is snow, it continues its quiet work. Each flake on the ground, each ridge of piled white, each rooftop dusted in frost, is reshaping the way sound moves through the world. High-pitched noises, sharp and brittle, are softened first. They are the easiest for snow to catch and hold. Lower sounds, like the bass note of a truck engine, or the long, low call of a distant train, travel farther, but they too are dulled. The entire landscape seems to wrap itself in insulation. Your brain, hearing this quieter world, gets an update from reality. Fewer loud things, fewer fast things, fewer surprises for a mind that has spent the day navigating alarms, notifications, conversations, and the relentless hum of modern life. This reduction is an enormous relief. It's normal if you don't feel that relief all at once. Sometimes anxiety takes time to unwind. The watchful system in your brain may have been so overworked for so long that it keeps peering into the quiet, wondering when the next noise will come. If you've lived in a loud environment, if you've known unpredictability, if you've had to stay alert for safety, silence might feel foreign, even suspicious. Your body might ask, why is it so quiet? Is something about to happen? If that is true for you, there is nothing wrong with you. Your nervous system is doing what it learned it had to do. It learned that watchfulness is necessary. But over time, with repetition, with safe nights and soft days, this same system can also learn that not every quiet needs to be filled with dread. Winter can help with that, the recurring hush after snowfalls, the regular pattern of evenings where the outside world is calmer, the familiar symphony of home sounds, all of these become evidence, whispered again and again. To your inner guard, look. Nothing bad followed this silence. Look, the quiet came and went, and you were okay. Slowly, the muscles unclench, the jaw loosens, the shoulders drop, the eyes soften in their sockets. You might notice, as you lie here, how tension pulls around the ears and temples, as if your body had been bracing for impact all day long. You can let that area soften now. You might imagine warm hands gently cupping your ears, not to block sound, but to comfort the part of you that has been listening for too long. Your hearing stays open, it always does, but the meaning of what you hear begins to shift. The heater's whoosh is no longer something to assess. It is just a soft ocean wave, coming and going behind you. The faint creaks of the building are no longer potential intruders, they are the house stretching its limbs and settling more deeply into its own rest. Even the distant muffled sounds outside blend into a kind of soft, continuous fabric, not a list of separate noises, but one long, low note of existence, somewhere deeper in your brain, regions that spring into action. When they detect danger, the ones that flood your body with adrenaline and urgency are staying quiet tonight. They are listening too, but what they hear is non-threatening. They are content to let the calmer networks take over, the ones that manage rest and repair, the ones that invite dreaming, the ones that ask not what could go wrong, but what can we heal now, while all is calm. If you were to step outside right now, into a snowy street at night, you might feel this with your whole body. The sound of your footsteps, that soft, muffled crunch, would be nearly the loudest thing. Your breath would appear in front of you, as a pale cloud, briefly visible, then gone. The world would feel held, as if someone had pressed the pause button, and yet life would go on. Tiny animals moving under the snow, water still flowing in hidden pipes, lights still glowing in windows. The quiet would not mean absence, it would mean gentleness. You don't have to go outside, though, to let this hush touch you. You can close your eyes and imagine it instead, the soft give of snow under each step, the way distant noises become small, rounded shapes, the way the air tastes cleaner, colder, crisper on the tongue. You can picture yourself returning home from that quiet walk, opening the door and stepping into warmth. The air humming softly with heat. A room waiting, blankets folded, pillows ready. That is where you are now. In your own version of that room, with your own version of that warmth. Outside, whether there is snow or not, the world is still quieter at this hour than it was before. Inside, your hearing systems are slowly learning that they can stand down just for a while. You don't have to force anything. You don't have to chase sleep. You are simply letting your senses rest in this softer landscape. The sound of snow is not just the crunch underfoot or the faint patter against a window. It is also the almost silence it creates, the way it lowers the ceiling of noise, so that your thoughts don't have to shout to be heard. It is the pause between one heartbeat and the next, between one breath and the next, stretched just a little longer as you listen now to whatever small sounds surround you. You might let them blur at the edges, merging into one gentle presence, like being wrapped in a blanket. You cannot see. You are being held by the quiet. The watchful part of your mind has done enough for today. It has listened, anticipated, protected. Now, in this winter hush, it is being told, not with words, but with the absence of alarm. For now, you can rest. For now, it is safe enough to let go, and as that message sinks slowly through your nervous system, you might feel yourself drifting with it, down and down, into a deeper kind of listening, where the only sounds that matter are your own slow breathing, the steady, faithful rhythm of a heart that has carried you this far, and the vast, embracing silence of a winter night holding you as you fall asleep. Imagine for a moment that you have stepped outside on a winter night. The air meets your skin like cool glass. Your breath rises in front of you in pale, ghostly clouds, each exhale briefly visible, then vanishing into the dark. The sky is wide. The stars, if you can see them, feel closer in the colder air, as if the universe itself has leaned in to listen. Your cheeks tingle. Your nose pricks with chill. The tips of your fingers feel the bite of winter, and your body responds in a language older than memory. Tiny muscles under your skin. Ask your blood to step back from the surface, to move inward, to protect the warmth at your core. Your hands curl a little. Your shoulders huddle nearer to your neck. Your body is saying, "This is the outside. We must keep the inside warm." You stand there for a moment longer, just long enough to feel that awake, crystalline clarity that only cold air can bring. Then you turn, open a door, and step across a threshold. Inside, the air wraps around you like a soft exhale. The difference is immediate, palpable, as if you have moved from one world into another. The cool sting on your skin is replaced by a gentle embrace of warmth. Your muscles begin to release their quiet clench. Your lungs fill more deeply. You are home. Maybe you peel off a coat, kick off shoes, unwrap a scarf, letting layers fall away as you cross from room to room. Maybe you are already in bed now, remembering this feeling instead of living it. But your body knows it just the same. The deep animal satisfaction of being sheltered from the cold. There is something profoundly safe about this contrast. Cold air, warm inside. Outside, a world of exposure. Inside, a small, controlled climate, just for you. Your body understands this shift more deeply than you know. Because temperature, for your nervous system, is not just a number. It is a story about safety and threat, about effort and rest, about whether it is time to move or time to soften. All day long, your inner climate has been carefully balanced by a quiet, tireless system you never have to think about. Somewhere deep in your brain, in a part that lies just above the meeting place of your spinal cord and your higher thoughts, there is a small command center for warmth. It listens to tiny thermometers scattered throughout your body, in your skin, in your organs, in your blood. These sensors whisper constantly, "We are this warm. The air is that cold. The hands feel like this, the feet like that." The command center listens, compares what it hears to a carefully protected inner target, a temperature range that keeps your enzymes flowing, your heart beating, your mind clear. And then, without consulting you, it makes decisions. Open blood vessels in the skin, close them, start a shiver, slow the sweat, ask muscles to generate a little more heat or a little less. All of this is happening, even now as you lie here. And as evening comes, this entire system does something very beautiful. It lets go. In the late afternoon and early night, your core body temperature begins to fall, not dramatically, not dangerously, but gently, like a slow sunset inside your cells. If you could see your inner warmth on a graph, you would see it forming a curve, highest in the late afternoon, then dipping downward as the hours creep toward midnight, before rising again, slowly, before dawn. This nightly drop, often around 0.5 degree to 1 degree Celsius, just a small change, is one of the quiet signals your brain uses to know that it is time to sleep. It's as if, somewhere inside, a dimmer switch is being turned. From day to night, you might notice hints of this in your own experience. The way your hands and feet sometimes feel a little warmer in the evening, as though they are glowing softly at the ends of your arms and legs. The way you sometimes yawn more after a hot shower or bath, or when you slip into warm socks. On a chilly night, this is not a contradiction, feeling warmer at the edges, while cooling at the core. In fact, the warmth in your hands and feet is part of how your body carries out its nightly plan. When your brain decides it is time to begin the descent into sleep, it nudges blood toward the surface of your body. Blood vessels in your skin, especially in the hands, the feet, and the face, relax and open, like little rivers widening. Warm blood, which has been keeping your core toasty, flows outward toward these outer landscapes. There, closer to the cool air around you, heat is allowed to escape, like steam leaving a warm mug. Your hands and feet become tiny lanterns, releasing heat into the room, helping your deep inner temperature drop just enough for sleep to feel possible. This is one of the reasons why many people find it easier to fall asleep in a room that is a bit cool rather than overly warm. When the air around you is slightly cooler than your skin, this gentle exchange, heat leaving your body at the surface, core temperature drifting downward, happens more easily. Your inner sunset is supported. Winter, with its naturally cooler air, quietly aligns itself with this process, the chill you feel on your face. When you first climb into bed, the coolness of the sheets touching your skin give your body a perfect opportunity to release the day's warmth. Then, when you draw blankets over yourself, something almost paradoxical happens. You create a small, warm world around your body, while the air beyond the edges of the bed remains cooler. The blankets trap some of the heat, leaving your skin forming a soft bubble of warmth just for you, while your core, nested deeper inside, still has the chance to cool that little bit it needs. Cool room, warm nest. Cold air, warm blankets. This simple combination mirrors the way animals in the wild might curl into sheltered spaces in winter, burrows, dens, nests made of leaves or fur, protected from the harshest elements, yet still in touch with the season's cool breath. Your nervous system recognizes this arrangement as profoundly right. It doesn't think of it in words. Of course, it feels it in sensations. A nose that is slightly cool to the touch, cheeks with a faint chill, shoulders and torso wrapped in growing heat, a mattress holding your outline, gravity pressing you gently down, if you feel especially drawn to heavy duvets, thick comforters, or extra blankets in winter. That is not indulgence, it is instinct. The pressure of those layers over your body does more than trap heat. For many, that weight creates a sense of being anchored and held, like a hand placed reassuringly over the chest. There is some science whispering behind this comfort, gentle, evenly distributed pressure on the body like the kind created by heavier blankets, can stimulate receptors in the skin and muscles that send calming signals up to the brain. These signals tell the nervous system, in their own wordless way, this is like being held. This is like being swaddled. This is like being safe. In response, your body may release more of the chemicals and hormones associated with calm and connection, while turning down the ones that shout of stress and alertness. The result, for many people, is a feeling of groundedness, a decrease in restless movement, a mind that is a little less jittery, combined with the cool air around the edges of your nest. The heavy, warm layers on top create a delicate balance. Your skin embraced, your core allowed to cool, your nervous system reminded of early proverbial safeties, being held, being wrapped, being tucked in. Somewhere deep in your mind, regions that listen to temperature are in conversation with regions that shape your sleep. They are not separate worlds, they share hallways, send messenger molecules back and forth as your body cools and your skin finds its comfort. Under blankets, these areas help orchestrate the dance of sleep stages that will carry you through the night. In the first phase, as you drift towards sleep, your mind flickers between wake and dream. Thoughts growing looser, images rising and dissolving like breath on cold glass. During this time, you are especially sensitive to shifts in temperature. A room that is too hot can make this passage feel sticky, uncomfortable, as your body struggles to release the heat it needs to let go. A room that is slightly cool, by contrast, acts like a kind of gentle slope. You're in a temperature sliding down, just enough to usher you into deeper sleep. As you enter the slow, restorative stages of non-REM sleep, your body temperature continues its nightly descent. Your metabolism slows, your muscles fully relax, tissues repair, memories sort themselves. Being too warm in this phase can cause you to stir, kick off blankets, or wake without quite knowing why. But when the temperature is right, cool air outside your blankets, cozy warmth inside, your body can sink more fully into this deep, quiet work. Later in the night, when you drift into REM sleep, the stage of vivid dreams, rapid eye movements, and active inner worlds, your body's ability to regulate temperature changes again. In REM, your brain behaves in some ways as if it is awake, but your muscles are gently paralyzed, preventing you from acting out your dreams. During these periods, your body lets go of some of its careful temperature control. You do not shiver as easily, and your ability to cool yourself is slightly different, more vulnerable. This too is why a stable, gentle environment matters through the night. The cool room, the dependable warmth of blankets, the absence of harsh temperature swings, all of these allow your dreaming self to roam more freely without having to wake up to manage the climate. But all of this science can be held very softly. You don't need to track each degree of temperature, each phase of sleep. You already know, in your own lived, felt way, what it is like to be too hot to rest. The tossing and turning, the sheet sticking to your skin, the sense that your body is trying to escape itself, and you know too, the deep comfort of finding the right balance, that moment when the bed feels just right, when the pillow cradles your head, when the air against your face is cool enough to be refreshing, but not harsh, and your blankets hold you in a pocket of safe warmth. It's normal if, in winter, you crave more of this, more layers, more softness, more of that feeling of being enclosed. The outside world with its sharp winds and bare branches, calls the body into vigilance, into small, hidden tensions, as it tries to guard its heat. Inside, your cells long for the opposite, to spread, to trust, to release. Your nervous system is like a creature that spent the day keeping its fur puffed up against the cold, its ears pricked, its posture tight. And now, finally, it has found its den. Here, beneath blankets, you are allowed to become soft, veins and arteries in your skin, no longer needing to clamp down, to preserve every bit of warmth, can relax. Your hands, no longer clenched in your pockets, can unclench. Your toes, no longer curled in your shoes, can fan out and stretch. You might even feel a subtle tingling warmth in your fingers and toes as blood returns fully to these outer edges, a sign, too, that your core has let go enough to share some of its heat. And as this happens, as warmth spreads at the surface and coolness gathers gently within, sleep draws nearer. You do not have to force it. You do not have to plead with it. You are simply aligning with a pattern that has always been there. Cold air, warm blankets, a body that knows what to do when these two conditions meet. Perhaps as you listen, you can sense small differences from earlier in your day. Maybe your breath is already slower, its edge is softer. Maybe your face feels a little cooler than your chest, your nose a bit chilled, while the rest of you sinks into growing heat beneath the covers. These are all tiny threads in the tapestry of your nightly descent. You can let them be. You don't have to name them or analyze them. Just notice, as you might notice, the way the light fades through a window at dusk. Around you, winter stands quietly outside, holding the air at a temperature that makes this whole process easier. Inside you, your inner sunset continues, cells cooling just enough, chemical rhythms shifting from doing to being, from striving to restoring. You are crossing a threshold from exposure to shelter, not only in space, but in state. The day, with its outward-facing warmth, its effort, its minor defenses, is stepping back. The night, with its cool invitation, its blankets, its permission to rest, is stepping in. You are allowed to follow. You are allowed to sink into this balance of cold and warm, to feel the soft gravity of your bed, to let your edges blur in the quiet climate you have created. Your body is not your enemy here. It is your guide. It knows the way down into deep winter sleep. All you have to do is let the air be cool, let the blankets be warm, and allow yourself to be carried by this ancient nightly tide, down and down into the safe, sheltered darkness where dreams begin. Outside, winter has pulled the sky down close. The last light of day has slipped away. And whatever lies beyond your walls now, streets, branches, empty sidewalks, the long, dark curve of the season, it's all wrapped in night. In here, though, something softer is happening. Maybe there is a small lamp on, its shade turning harsh brightness into a warm, gentle pool of gold. Maybe there is a candle, or several, tiny suns held in glass, their flames moving in slow, thoughtful gestures, painting the walls with light that wavers instead of glares. Maybe it's just the dim glow of a screen turned low, or a string of bulbs draped along a shelf, or the amber eye of an old floor lamp in the corner. Whatever the source, there is a particular kind of light that belongs to evenings like this. It doesn't demand attention. It doesn't startle or shout. It whispers. It lingers. It makes shadows that are soft around the edges. In this kind of light, An ordinary room becomes something else. A small cave, a nest, a cocoon of gold and shadow that seems to say, stay, rest here. You don't have to do any more tonight. Your eyes, which have spent so much of the day under bright bulbs, staring at vivid screens, reading sharp backlit text, feel this change like an exhale. The pupils relax, no longer bracing against the glare. Muscles that help your lenses focus are given simpler tasks. No tiny words, no flickering notifications, just soft edges, broad shapes, the rocking flame of a candle. Somewhere behind your eyes, cells that are always measuring light send messages deeper into the brain. They report not only it is evening, but also it is gentle, bright, cold overhead light, the kind that mimics midday sun, keeps the brain in a state of alertness. It tells the inner clock, not yet, stay awake, keep going. But this light, the warm, dim, pooled kind, tells a different story. It lets melatonin whisper more boldly into your bloodstream, that hormone of darkness and softness, weighing down your eyelids, slowing your thoughts. It nudges your nervous system toward its quieter branch, the one sometimes called rest and digest. All through the day, you move in and out of two broad modes of being. One is the state of mobilization, gearing up, alert, focused, your heart a little quicker, your breath a little shallower, your mind scanning, tracking, planning. This is useful. It gets you through conversations, deadlines, errands, traffic. The other is the state of settling, the parasympathetic side, where your heart slows, your digestion wakes up, your muscles loosen, your mind grows more spacious, less sharp-edged. This is the state where healing happens, where sleep rises more easily, where connection feels safe. Instead of demanding, warm, dim light is one of the oldest, most reliable signals that it's time to slide into that second state. For so much of human history, evenings were lit by fire, campfires, hearths, candles, lamps of oil, light that flickered and glowed, that reached only a small radius, that didn't erase the darkness, but gently pushed it back. Around that kind of light, people gathered. They told stories, stitched and carved, shared food, sat shoulder to shoulder. The dangers of the day, the hunt, the work, the travel, fell away for a time. The body could lower its guard. Your brain still holds an echo of those long nights by the fire. Somewhere deep in the circuits that track safety and threat, warm, gentle light is linked to. For now, we are okay, even if you live alone, even if you are far from wilderness or open flame. When you dim bright bulbs and let the room soften into a low golden glow, your nervous system recognizes an ancient cue. The work is done. The tribe, whatever that means for you now, is close enough. You can rest. In rooms like this, with this kind of light, the social part of your brain finally has room to breathe. All day, it has been busy, reading faces, hearing tone of voice, guessing what others mean, adjusting your expressions, monitoring whether you are being liked, approved of, judged. It is a lot. Being a person among other people, your social brain is constantly doing quiet calculus, measuring closeness and distance, safety and risk. Am I welcome here? Do I belong? Is this a moment to open up or to armor? In bright spaces, in crowds, in the sharpness of fluorescents and screens, this system works hard. It is scanning many eyes at once, tracking multiple voices, keeping your posture, your words, your little smiles in line with all it perceives. But in a winter evening room, lit only softly, something shifts. Shadows give you privacy. You see fewer details, not more. Lines on your own face blur in the dimness. You become, to yourself and others, softer, less defined by angles and flaws. There are studies that hint at this. People often speak more openly in dim light, feel less painfully self-conscious, as if they are a little less under a spotlight. You may have felt it at dinner by candlelight, or in late-night conversations, where the only light comes from a lamp in the corner. Words come easier. Laughter is quieter, but deeper. It feels safer to let your guard down, somewhere deep in your brainstem, and in the wiring of your vagus nerve, that long, wandering bundle of fibers, linking brain to heart, lungs, gut, low light and enclosed spaces. Register as den, not stage. Your social engagement system, as some scientists and therapists call it, begins to lean forward, not in vigilance, but in genuine curiosity and warmth. The nerves that control the tiny muscles of your face, your eyes, your voice, settle into more relaxed patterns. Your gaze softens, your tone of voice lowers. You might find yourself sighing, without knowing why, a long, slow exhale your body uses to tell itself, we're safe enough now. And if, in that room, you are not alone, if there is someone sitting near you, a friend, a partner, a family member, even a pet curled at your feet, another layer of calm chemistry melts quietly into place. When we draw close to those we trust, when we share touch, a hand resting on a knee, shoulders leaning together under the same blanket, fingers brushing as you both reach for the same mug, the body often releases a little more oxytocin. Oxytocin is sometimes called the bonding hormone or the cuddle chemical. That makes it sound almost whimsical, but its effects are profound. It is released during hugs, gentle touches, during breastfeeding, during moments of shared joy, even when making eye contact with someone you care for, or stroking the fur of an animal who trusts you. Once in your system, oxytocin moves through the brain and body, softening edges you may not have realized were sharp. It dampens some of the reactivity. In the amygdala, the region that scans for danger, that triggers fear and alarm, with more oxytocin in the mix, threat seems smaller, more distant. Safety feels closer, more possible. Your heart rate can slow. Your blood pressure can ease. You feel a little more anchored, a little less alone in the world. Winter evenings, when there is less pressure to go out, less expectation to shine as a public self, make room for this kind of closeness. People gather in smaller circles, on couches, around low tables, on the floor with pillows and blankets spread like islands. They share soup, or tea, or simply quiet presence, each body adding to the sense of warmth in the room. Even the act of wrapping both hands around a hot mug can be a small ritual of connection to the object, to your own body, to the moment. The warmth against your palms tells temperature-sensitive nerves we are near something life-giving, fire-controlled, heat shared, and your nervous system reads that warmth indoors in winter as another layer of safety. But perhaps tonight you are alone. No other voices are murmuring in the room. No other breathing is matching your own. Maybe there is only you and the light and whatever quiet sounds your home makes at night. Even then, you are not cut off from this cocoon. The mind has a talent for conjuring company. When you remember past evenings of closeness, friends laughing under dim lights, a partner dozing against your shoulder, a childhood home lit by a single lamp, your brain can react, as if some part of that warmth is happening again. Memories are not just images, they are partial replays of chemistry and feeling. Thinking about being held can, in small ways, stimulate some of the same networks that were active when you were actually there. Seeing a photo of someone you love, or even picturing their face in your mind, can stir the social brain, invite a trickle of oxytocin, quiet the lonely alarm bells. Your nervous system, though it respects the difference between imagination and reality, is generous in what it counts as comfort. So if you are by yourself tonight, in a room lit by gentle light, you might let your mind wander softly to moments of connection, past or hoped for. You could picture a table, surrounded by people who understand you, or the soft weight of a pet, settled against your legs, or even a version of you from another time, younger, being wrapped in a blanket by someone who loved you somewhere deep inside. Your brain's circuits that track belonging and safety can be soothed even by these quiet inner scenes. Winter, with its long nights and slower social tempo, invites a different kind of relating. The loud, outward-facing connections, networking, large gatherings, crowded events, fade for a while. In their place, a gentler social energy arises. Small groups, one-on-one talks, evenings shared silently in the same room, each person lost in their own book or thoughts, but comforted by the other's presence. This is a kind of social rest, a break not from people entirely, but from the performance that social interaction can demand. It is normal in winter to want to retreat a little, to cancel plans sometimes, to prefer one close friend over 10 casual acquaintances, to choose a night of quiet over a night of spectacle. Your nervous system often welcomes this hibernation, not only in muscle and bone, but in your relational life. The circuits that support self-reflection and daydreaming, that inner network that turns on when you are not focused outward, find more space to wander. In these slow evenings, you might sit in your dim room and suddenly find yourself remembering an old story, or tracing the threads of a feeling back through time, or simply watching your own thoughts the way you might watch snow falling outside a window. Some people worry that this urge to withdraw means they are failing or losing something, but often it is simply the psyche's way of coming home to itself after long seasons of output. Somewhere deep in the mind, circuits that track safety. Notice the familiar smells of your home, the arrangement of furniture, the steady presence of walls, the softness of light. They send their quiet report. No predators here, no loud demands, just the small, predictable whirl of this room and your rest and digest system. Hears this and rises a little more. The vagus nerve whispers to your heart to slow its pace. It tells your lungs that it is okay to deepen each breath. It nudges your digestive organs back into a gentle rhythm, letting your body turn its energy toward repair rather than defense. You might feel this as a heaviness in your limbs, pleasant and grounding, or as a softening in your chest and throat, or as a quiet hunger for simple comforts, a blanket, a warm drink, someone's voice murmuring in the background, or just the rise and fall of your own around you. The room participates in this shift. Soft materials, pillows, throws, rugs, muffle hard edges of sound, and cushion hard corners of furniture. Scents drift through the air, maybe from tea, or a candle, or the faint memory of tonight's meal. Your brain learns, over time, to associate these sensory details with a state of calm. The hippocampus, which helps link places to experiences, stores the memory of this room in this light as safe, quiet. Here, I rest. Later, on another night, simply stepping into the same space, turning on the same lamp, pulling the same blanket across your legs, can call up the same state more easily. Each evening of softness sets another thread, weaving a stronger connection between this environment and the part of your nervous system that knows how to let go. So you are not just decorating a room. When you soften your lights, add a candle, choose a gentler color of bulb, or create a ritual of tea or reading or music, you are building a small habitat for your own rest, a cocoon on purpose. Inside that cocoon, your heart can beat, as if the world is not ending, as if you are not behind, as if there is enough time, enough warmth, enough connection, even if tonight that connection is mostly with yourself. You do not have to earn this kind of peace. You do not have to justify wanting to be in a quiet, low-lit room on a winter night. You are an animal, and animals seek dens in winter. They seek enclosed spaces, familiar scents, the close presence of their own kind, or simply their own body, curled in on itself. The candlelit room, the lamplit corner, the bed glowing softly in the half-dark are all versions of that den. They are invitations for your nervous system to stand down, for your social brain to stop performing, for your heart to remember a slower rhythm. As you lie here in whatever light you have chosen, you can imagine the room itself holding you. The walls, steady and unhurried. The ceiling, a quiet lid over your sky. The lamp or candle, a small artificial star that asks nothing of you except to receive its glow. You are allowed to be still. You are allowed to be a little quieter than usual. You are allowed to feel in your muscles and bones that you are inside something gentle, inside a space, inside a season, inside your own life. You don't need to remember the names of hormones, or brain regions, or nerves. All you need to feel is this: the lights are low, the night is long. For now, you are held. Let the room be your cocoon. Let the warm, dim light wrap your thoughts in softness. Let your heart, so used to bracing, slowly realize that in this moment, in this place, it can rest. In winter, the days feel narrower. The sun doesn't climb as high as it used to. Its path across the sky is a low, careful arc, as if it is tired too, as if it is choosing to move more slowly, just for a little while. Afternoon shadows stretch farther than seems reasonable, long dark fingers reaching across streets and walls and snow. You might glance at the clock and feel surprised. How is it this late already? Or, on other days, how is it still today? Time itself feels different in winter, stretched or compressed. You're not entirely sure. The bright, busy feeling of long summer days has slipped into something else. A slower current, a thicker kind of hour that invites you to sink instead of sprint. Maybe you've felt it. Less pressure to fill every evening. Fewer invitations, fewer reasons to rush out the door. More nights where the world outside feels like a closed book, and your own room, your own mind, becomes the page in front of you. You might think, at first, that nothing much is happening in these quieter times, that you are doing less, being unproductive. But somewhere inside, beneath the surface of your awareness, a different kind of activity is waking up. your brain relieved of some of the constant demands. To respond, perform, and produce begins to shift into a slower, more introspective rhythm. It has been waiting for this. All day, every day, you move through tasks and conversations, like stepping stones. This email, that message, this errand, that responsibility. When you're focused on something out there, a screen, a voice, a problem to solve, certain networks in your brain light up in coordinated patterns. They are the systems of outward attention, the ones that help you read, reply, plan, do. But when those tasks finally loosen their grip, when the notifications quiet down, and the to-do list stops calling your name, another set of networks begins to glow more brightly. Scientists call this the default mode network, because it becomes more active when you are not focused on anything in particular, when your mind is allowed to wander, to drift between memories and daydreams, to replay scenes from the past, and imagine possibilities for the future. That name, default mode, sounds dry, even dull, but that's not what it feels like from the inside. To you, it feels more like sitting by an inner fireplace. In this place, the logs are made of old experiences, conversations you had years ago, moments you barely noticed at the time, glances, mistakes, small victories, all the tiny fragments of living that never had a chance to fully register while life was rushing past. During the busy months, the high arcs of spring, the long, loud days of summer, these logs simply pile up. But in winter, when the external world quiets, your inner world finally has time to lay these pieces out, place them on the fire, and slowly turn them into warmth and understanding. You might notice it as a certain kind of thoughtful that visits you more often now. You are washing dishes in the early dark of a winter evening, and suddenly your mind brings back a memory you haven't recalled in years. You are walking through a cold street, collar pulled up, and without meaning to, you find yourself reflecting on who you were 5 winters ago, or 10, or the winter when you were a child, and the world felt huge and magical and strange. Sometimes, this winter reflection feels nostalgic, soft, bittersweet. Sometimes it feels tender, like pressing lightly on a bruise to see if it still hurts. It's normal if winter makes you this way. More thoughtful, more aware of time, more in touch with emotions. You are too busy to feel deeply. In other seasons, with less noise outside, the mind can hear its own echoes more clearly. That clarity can feel unsettling at times. There are feelings you might have postponed, questions you pushed aside, while other seasons swept you along. Am I where I want to be? What have I lost this year? What have I gained? Who am I now, compared to who I believed I would be? If these thoughts surface, more often in winter, it is not a failure in you. It is, in many ways, your brain doing what it is meant to do. When given a little more stillness, somewhere deep within, regions like the hippocampus, which helps shape memory, and parts of your prefrontal cortex, which helps you understand yourself, are busy stitching together the scattered pieces of your life. Like careful hands at a loom, they take threads from different moments and years and weave them into something more coherent. This is how your brain makes your story. It is not one single operation, finished in an instant. It is a slow, ongoing process, a quiet, nightly work that becomes easier when there is more room and less noise. Mind wandering, which you might have been taught to scold yourself for, is part of this process. On long, dark evenings, you may find your thoughts drifting away from the task at hand, the book you're reading, the show you're half watching, and wandering instead, through scenes of the past, fantasies about the future, alternate versions of events. Part of you might judge this wandering as distraction, as lack of focus. But another part, the deeper, quieter part, is simply trying to understand. Mind wandering can be a kind of emotional housekeeping. Loose ends are picked up. Unspoken feelings are examined. From a safer distance, small hurts are replayed and filed more carefully. Your brain reactivates the patterns of activity linked to old experiences in order to place them where they belong. Winter, with its reduced stimulation, fewer outings, fewer bright evenings, fewer events overflowing your calendar, creates more of the blank space. This inner work needs. When the outside world is quieter, your internal resting network can speak a little louder. Think of it like being in a room where one soft instrument was always playing in the background, but you were too busy listening to everything else to really hear it. Now, as some of the other sounds fade, you start to notice its melody, gentle, persistent, beautiful in its own slow way. You might feel an urge to fill these quieter spaces with more noise, more shows, more scrolling, more input, because the stillness feels strange and the thoughts it invites are not always comfortable. If that is true for you, there is nothing wrong in that. Your brain is accustomed to a certain level of distraction. Silence, at first, can feel too loud. But if you allow yourself, even a little, to sit in the slowed-down wintertime, to let an evening pass, with less doing and more drifting, you might notice that your thoughts begin to settle, the way snowflakes do. At first, they swirl chaotically, rushed along by invisible currents, but as the air grows calmer, they start to fall more slowly, each one finding its place. On the quiet ground, you don't have to force this. You don't have to sit perfectly still and reflect with great intention. The brain often prefers a softer approach. Some of the deepest winter reflections come not when you are sitting, staring at a wall, but when you are doing simple, repetitive things. Folding laundry, stirring a pot on the stove, walking the same route to the store or the mailbox, watching light flicker on the ceiling. These gentle motions give your body something to do, while freeing your mind to slip into its own pace. The task-focused networks go partly offline. The default mode comes forward, turning the pages of your inner book. You may replay conversations, revisit crossroads, suddenly remember a small kindness or a small cruelty that you haven't thought of in years. Sometimes these replays can sting. Sometimes they can warm you unexpectedly. Either way, they are chances for your brain to examine what happened from the vantage point of who you are now. In this way, reflection is a kind of time travel, a chance to send more mature understanding backward along the timeline of your life. You might find yourself offering compassion to your younger self, whether consciously or not, as you revisit certain memories. Or you might notice patterns emerging. I felt this before. I tend to react this way. And in that noticing, there is already a small step toward freedom. Winter can amplify this process, not because it is magical in itself, but because it alters the rhythm of your days just enough to make space for it. Less late-night brightness, fewer long commutes in evening light, more emphasis on indoor life, on interior landscapes. It is as if time itself feels thicker, like syrup instead of water. Some moments may seem to drag, others disappear quickly, blurred at the edges. Your sense of time is not a clock on the wall. It is an experience built by your brain out of events, emotions and levels of arousal. Busy, novel days filled with new experiences tend to feel fast while you're in them, but later, in memory, they seem long and full. Slow, repetitive days, especially if you are tired or subdued, can feel slow in the moment, yet blur together in retrospect into a shorter feeling stretch. Winter can be a mix of both. On grey days, when everything feels the same, time may feel slippery, hard to grasp, hard to remember. On certain evenings of reflection, though, time can feel almost suspended, as if the clock continues to tick. But you live outside of it for a while in a pool of thought and flickering light. If these changes in time sense move you or confuse you, know that your brain is simply responding to the season's altered pace. Longer nights, less light, a slightly more subdued body, due to natural shifts in hormones and energy. All of these contribute to the feeling that winter days are somehow different in their texture, and inside that difference is an invitation to stop measuring your worth only by what you do, what you finish, what you can show. Reflection, though it leaves nothing visible in your hands, is still a form of work, quiet work, necessary work. It is how your brain helps you integrate what has happened, not just to survive it, but to learn from it, to place it in context, to decide slowly who you want to become next. You don't have to solve anything tonight. You don't have to reach grand conclusions or design a perfect future. The brain rarely does its best organizing under pressure. Instead, you can imagine that somewhere inside you, a small library has opened its doors. Winter evenings are when the librarian in you moves through the shelves, dusting off forgotten volumes, putting certain stories next to each other, because they finally make sense as a pair. You, at the surface, might only feel a vague sense of contemplation, an urge to journal or think, or simply stare at the fading light. That is enough. That is more than enough, even as you rest, and maybe drift closer to sleep. This inner organizing can continue during sleep itself, in those deep, slow wave stages, and again during REM dreams. Your brain replays small pieces of your day, and sometimes pieces of your past. It strengthens certain connections, loosens others, files memories in more durable forms. It is as if winter evenings prepare the logs, and winter nights tend the fire. But for now, as you lie here, you don't need to track any of this in detail. You can simply let yourself feel how the season has already slowed you, even if only a little. You might not go out as late. You might move more quietly through your home. You might find yourself pausing to look out a window at the long blue dusk. Each of these small slows is like a hand resting on the spinning wheel of your mind, asking it to turn at a gentler speed. You are not falling behind. You are falling inward. There will be seasons again of more light, more outward momentum, more busy kinds of growth. But this season, this frozen time of winter, holds a different kind of gift. Space for your own echoes, space for your story to catch up with you, space for feelings to rise and settle without having to be rushed aside. If, as you listen now, you feel your thoughts wandering off, that is okay. That is part of what this is for. You might drift into memories or imaginings or simply blankness. You don't need to pull yourself back. The winter of the mind is not about sharp focus. It is about soft seeing, about letting whatever appears in the quiet have a moment to exist. And if sleep comes while your thoughts are still moving, that is all right too. Your brain will keep caring for you. in your absence. Outside, the night continues, its slow, dark arc. Shadows lie long along empty streets. The world for now is quieter. Inside you, time has slowed enough for another kind of work to begin. Gentle, invisible, necessary. You are allowed to surrender to it, to float on it, like a leaf set gently on a winter stream. Let the season be slow. Let your mind be slow. Let understanding, if it comes, come in its own time. Tonight, it is enough simply to rest inside this stretched, softened hour. Watching, or not watching, as winter turns your scattered days into something more whole. Outside, the world looks still. The ground is hard, the trees are bare, the air is thin and cold enough to turn your breath into small, wandering clouds. Frost lies along railings and rooftops, tracing delicate patterns in white, as if the night itself had reached out and drawn with a fingertip. It can be easy, on nights like this, to think of winter as an ending, to look at the leafless branches and the frozen soil and the quiet ponds, and imagine that life has retreated or even disappeared. But if you could see, beneath the surface of this season, you would find a different story. Beneath the frozen ground, seeds are waiting, tiny packages of potential, tucked just under the soil, resting in the cold dark. They are not dead, they are not failing, they are following instructions, written into them long ago. Many seeds need winter, they need the chill, the long stretch of frost and shadow, for their shells to soften, for their chemistry to shift, for something inside them to quietly say, not yet. But soon, trees that look bare are quietly alive. Inside their trunks, under the grey and brown bark, sap still moves slowly. Buds that formed months ago wait at the tips of slender branches, sealed against the cold, holding the exact shapes of leaves and flowers that will one day unfurl. On the surface, they seem motionless, skeletal, as if they have given up, but they have simply turned inward. They are drawing in, conserving their energy, protecting their roots, repairing what has been worn or broken by the year that has passed. Lakes crust over with ice or grow a glassy skin that mirrors the sky. At the edges, the water is still. Rocks hold a ring of frozen lace where waves used to touch them. But below the surface, life continues. Fish move more slowly, their bodies cooled, their needs reduced. Plants bend and drift, not dying, just quieter. Metabolisms ease down, like a song turning down its own volume. Winter, in nature, is not an ending. It is a turning inward, a season of necessary stillness before the next great bloom somewhere inside you. Whether you can feel it or not, a similar season may be happening. Your body, like the earth that holds it, listens to the cycles of light and dark, warmth and cold, activity and rest. Hormones shift, sometimes in small ways, sometimes in more dramatic waves. Energy rises and falls. Moods change like the sky, sometimes bright and sharp, sometimes grey and low, sometimes a quiet blue. That stretches farther than you can see. It can be unsettling to feel these changes and not know why, to wake in winter with heaviness in your limbs, to find your thoughts moving more slowly, your motivation a little dimmer, like a lamp running on low power. You might wonder, why can't I feel like summer all the time? Why can't I be bright and quick and productive in every season, in every month, in every hour? But somewhere deep in your mind, beneath your expectations and self-judgments, there are rhythms longer than a day, gently guiding you. We often talk about circadian rhythms, the 24-hour cycles tied to sunrise and sunset. But your body carries other rhythms too, longer, slower waves that rise and fall over weeks and months and seasons. These circannual rhythms, year-long patterns of change, shape appetite, sleep needs, mood, even how your immune system and metabolism behave. You are not a machine, outputting the same amount of light and energy every day of the year. You are more like a tree, or a field, or a coastline, different in winter than in summer, changing with the angle of the sun. In the colder, darker months, your brain recognizes that there is less external fuel, less light, sometimes less movement, often fewer social gatherings. Levels of some hormones, like melatonin, shift with the longer nights, staying higher for longer, inviting more sleepiness. Other chemicals that influence mood and energy, like serotonin, like certain stress hormones, may also adjust to the new pattern of days. It is normal to feel heavier in winter, to need more rest, to have a different relationship with food and movement and emotion than you do under the high, bright sun of summer. It doesn't mean you're broken. Often, it means your system is honoring an ancient pattern of conservation and renewal. For much of human history, winter was a lean time. Food was less abundant, travel was harder, days were shorter, nights longer. The body learned, over thousands of years, to respond wisely to this, to slow down, to store energy, to seek warmth and closeness, to do less, in order to make it through. Some of that wisdom still lives in you. It can look like craving heavier foods, your body gently nudging you to keep its inner fires burning. It can look like wanting to stay inside, to burrow under blankets, to choose quiet evenings over noisy nights out. It can look like needing more sleep, or at least more softness, even when your schedule makes that difficult. It can look like emotions rising to the surface more easily, as if the thin crust of ice over your inner lake has grown thinner, letting what's beneath show through. In a culture that praises constant output, constant brightness, constant motion, these winter responses can feel like a betrayal. You might call yourself lazy for needing rest, weak for feeling tender, undisciplined for not charging ahead at full speed. But if you step back and look at the larger pattern, at the way forests and fields behave, at the way animals adjust, at the way your own body cycles between wake and sleep, on a smaller scale, you might see something gentler. There is no creature in nature that is always on. Every heart has its beats and its pauses between beats. Every breath has its inhale and its exhale. Every wave rises and falls. You are no different. You are not meant to be constant sunshine. You are built like the earth itself. For seasons, there are seasons in a single day. Mornings rise, afternoons plateau, evenings soft decline. There are seasons in a year, the outgoing energy of spring, the full stretch of summer, the turning and thinning of autumn, the inward curve of winter. There are even seasons in a life, times of expansion, times of consolidation, times of loss, times of quiet rebuilding. Beneath the surface, when you are in a winter season, internally or externally, it can be hard to trust that this too is part of growth. Frozen soil does not look fertile. Bare branches do not look generous. A person under blankets, lost in thought, does not look productive by the usual measures. But deep within the ground, the cold is working on the seeds, breaking down their outer shells, preparing them to open when the time is right. In the tree, cells are repairing small damages. redistributing resources, strengthening what must hold. The way to future leaves. In the frozen lake, organisms conserve their energy, protecting their core, so that when the ice melts, they can burst back into fuller activity. And in you, when you spend an evening, simply lying under a blanket, listening to your own breathing, and letting your thoughts rise and fall like slow waves, your nervous system may be doing something similar. It may be rebalancing, recovering from long periods of stress, strengthening connections in your brain that were frayed by overuse, letting overactive alarm systems settle down. It may be quietly asking, what matters now? What can I release? What do I want to carry into the next season? And what can be left? To rest in the past, you don't have to answer those questions tonight. You don't have to turn your winter into a project. Understanding these cycles is not another task to complete. It is a way to soften self-judgment. When you find yourself doing less on a short grey day, when you are slower to get out of bed, or you reach the end of an evening, without a long list of accomplishments, you can remember that not all growth is visible on the surface. Some growth looks like not moving, like saying no, like lying still and letting the body recalibrate. Some healing happens only when you stop pushing. If you can, you might let a different question rise in you on winter nights. Not what did I do today, but what did I allow today? What rest, what feeling, what pause did I permit myself to have? Even the simple act of noticing your own breath for a few quiet moments is a kind of allowing. Air enters, cold or cool against your nostrils, passes down into your lungs, warms there. Air leaves again, slightly changed, carrying with it what your body no longer needs. This is a cycle too. Constant, trustworthy, requiring no conscious command. You would not accuse your lungs of laziness when they pause between breaths. You would not say, the heart is failing, because it rests for a fraction of a second between beats. In the same way, you can begin to see your quieter days, your slower hours, not as evidence of failure, but as the natural spaces between pulses of effort, like the stars waiting quietly behind winter clouds. Parts of you are simply resting, not gone. The capacity for joy, for energy, for new projects and connections. It may feel obscured right now, covered by a layer of grey mood or soft fatigue, but obscured is not destroyed. Clouds pass, ice melts, seasons tilt. The systems in your brain that give rise to curiosity, motivation, pleasure can be muted in winter or during hard times without being erased. They are responding to real conditions. Less light, more strain, more need for protection. By allowing those systems to quiet a little, to use less fuel. While circumstances are harsher, your body and mind are often trying to take care of you in the best way they know how. And just as plants need a certain number of chill hours before they can flower properly, you, too, may need a certain amount of stillness before your next blooming. You don't have to know what that blooming will be. You don't have to design it, plan it, or earn it. It will come in its own season, with its own timing. For now, you are allowed to be in the frost. You are allowed to exist in a chapter where the main action is not visible. You are allowed to trust that being less active does not make you less worthy, that being tired does not make you useless, that needing rest does not make you weak. Somewhere deep in your cells, in your bones, in the oldest parts of your brain, there is still a memory of how to live in rhythm with the turning world. you may have been taught, through schedules and deadlines, and glowing screens that ignore sunrise and sunset, to override that memory, to treat every day as if it were the same. But that older wisdom is still there. It surfaces as an urge to slow down when the air calls, as a wish to wrap yourself in softness and look inward when the nights lengthen. You can choose to honor that urge, even in small ways, by letting yourself move a bit more gently, by allowing some evenings to remain unscheduled, by accepting that this season, inside and out, is one of quieter becoming. As you lie here now, held by whatever blankets you've drawn around you, you are already practicing this. You are not rushing, you are not performing, you are not required to be bright or clever or efficient. You are simply existing in a winter night, listening to words wash over you, breathing in and out. Your body doing 1,000 tiny adjustments and repairs, without asking for applause, somewhere under the surface of your skin, of your thoughts, of this very day. Processes of renewal are unfolding. Cells are replacing themselves. Synapses in your brain are strengthening or loosening, making room for new connections. Immune cells are patrolling, healing minor wounds you never knew you had. And as sleep draws closer, another layer of renewal waits to begin. You don't have to meet it halfway. You don't have to do anything heroic. You can simply let yourself drift toward. Let the promise in the frost settle into your body, the quiet understanding that stillness too is part of growth. You are not behind. You are not late. You are simply in winter, and winter has always been a chapter in the story of becoming. So as your eyes grow heavier and your thoughts grow softer, you can let go of the idea that you must be summer tonight. You can let your inner landscape be what it is: a field under snow, a tree without leaves, a lake under ice, alive, preparing, resting on purpose. Your winter is allowed. Your slower pace is allowed. Your need for quiet is allowed. Beneath it all, nothing in you is lost. Everything is simply waiting for its season. And now, in this still, cold, gentle night, you are free to close your eyes, to breathe, to trust that rest is not an ending, but a phase of becoming, and to let sleep carry you the rest of the way. The night has deepened while you've been listening. Somewhere beyond your walls, the winter air is holding its steady, patient chill. Perhaps there is snow on the ground, perhaps only darkness. But either way, the season is wrapping the world in a slower rhythm, a quieter song. Inside you, small, unseen systems have been responding. Your inner clock listening to the absence of light. Your watchful mind relaxing into gentler sounds. Your body easing into the comfort of warm blankets and cool air. Your thoughts softening under the weight of shorter days and longer nights. You don't have to feel all of this. You don't have to notice when your temperature drops, or when your melatonin rises, or when your brain finally decides, now, it's safe enough to let go. You can simply trust that somewhere deep in the mind, ancient patterns are unfolding, quietly, reliably, just as they always have through countless winters before this one. It's normal if part of you still feels busy, still carries the hum of the day. That part can rest too, in its own time. For now, you have given your body something precious: permission. Permission to be seasonal, permission to be slower, permission to be, like the fields under snow, at rest on the surface while life continues softly underneath. As you drift toward sleep, you might imagine yourself as a winter landscape, a forest of bare branches silhouetted against a dim sky. a frozen lake holding quiet depths, a small, warm window in the distance, glowing like a heartbeat in the dark. You are that window, that glow, that quiet. You don't need to do anything more tonight. You can let the science fade into a gentle blur, like footprints filling with snow. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to dream. And as the quiet season wraps itself around your thoughts, may your mind grow still, your breath grow slow, and your whole being remember how natural, how deeply human it is to simply close your eyes and sleep.